We're looking at Greek verbs today. A verb is an action. It's something you do. It's different to a noun. A noun is a name of something, like cat. Cat is a noun. Dog is a noun. Car is a noun. But if a cat meows, meow is a verb. If a dog barks, bark is a verb. And if a car crashes, crashes is a verb. So we're looking at verbs today. If you remember last week, one of the common mistakes in word studies is thinking that the meaning is only in the meaning that the author intended is only in the lexical meaning of that word. I say lexical, that would be like the dictionary definition, okay? And what we're going to learn today is how to look at the grammar as well, because the grammar of the verb often tells us more. In fact, for a long time, when I was approaching Bible study using Greek, I was mainly looking at definitions of words. When I started looking at the grammar, I found I understood the text much better. So it's really helpful to know the grammar. Now, as new students to Greek, you've got to be careful what you do with the information you learn today. Okay, you've got to be very careful about not going away and looking up the grammar of something and then deciding on your own, this is what this means. You could run into troubles that way. But what you'll really benefit from in this session is now you have an understanding so that when you read a commentary, a good commentary that talks about the Greek grammar, you will understand what they're talking about. So if you've got a book like this book here, The New Linguistic and Exegetical Key to the Greek New Testament by Rogers and Rogers, you will understand what they're chatting about when they use certain grammatical terms. Or if you get this one, A Grammatical Analysis of the Greek New Testament, called Max and Mary, if you get this one, you'll understand the grammatical terms. So what you're learning today will be a great benefit to you. It also means you're going to know more, some of you anyway, are going to know more about Greek grammar by the end of today than you know about English grammar, which is interesting. So let's have a look at the tenses. You got the present tense in Greek. Present tense is generally a continued action in the present. And I'll tell you what, to help you out, because I can see you guys want to take notes, so I'm going to give a handout out here. If you could take one and pass one on. And then some of the stuff is already noted on this handout. So there might be some things you want to add to it. Whilst that handout's going around, I should point out, in Koine Greek, when you're talking about tenses, the biggest concern is not so much the time, not the time in place, as in the present, the future, or the past, but it's more to do with the aspect of the tense. Now, the easiest way to understand this is everything you learn today, view from the mind of a film director. Okay, and imagine that he's telling the cameramen how to shoot the film. And when we're talking about the aspect, what we're saying is, how is the writer portraying the verb? Now, that might be hard to understand right now, but as we go through it, it should get clearer, hopefully. So in this case, the present tense is generally a continual action in the present. And what it means is, it's an action going on, like right now, I am teaching. Okay, it's in the present tense. I am teaching. It's a continuous action. I'm teaching and I keep on teaching. If you were filming me in a movie, you would have the camera on me for a period of time showing me teaching like this. That is the aspect. It's a continuous action. And it's generally in the present time. But sometimes the present tense is talking about the future. So sometimes it can even talk about the past. So what we've got to understand as we approach these verbs is that the timing is not as important as the aspect. So if you've learnt French or another language, you might find this a bit confusing, because when you hear present tense, you think that means it happens right now in the present. What I want you to start thinking today is when you hear present tense, start thinking, it's probably a continuous action. Okay. One example would be, okay, I just clapped. Was that a continuous action? Good. All right, so you all know what continuous means. Now, what about this one? Is that continuous? Yeah, so that's the difference. So this one, you would definitely use the present tense, whereas that one, you're not really going to use the present tense for that, okay? Now we've got the imperfect tense. Now the imperfect tense is similar, very similar to the present tense, because again, it's generally a continual action, something that keeps on going, okay? But generally, it's in the past time. So a minute ago, I was clapping. Guess what tense that is? I was clapping. So you're right, it is continuous, but it happened in the past time, which makes it imperfect tense. Okay? So both the present and the imperfect tend to be continuous. But the main difference is the present is often in the present time as we speak, and the imperfect is often in the past time, but not always, which is what we're going to see in a minute. Okay? Now we've got the aorist tense, okay? Aorist, that's how it's pronounced, not aorist. Aorist tense. Now it basically means undefined. It's an undefined tense. What it means is, this is the easiest way I can find to explain it, a snapshot of the action, okay? So I'm teaching right now. It's a continuous action, right? So I think we'd all agree it's present tense. I am teaching, okay? Now, what happens if someone thinks, hey, I want a photo of this Greek class to put in my scrapbook, and they suddenly whip out a camera and go, ka-ching, and take a picture of me teaching. Now, what does that photograph tell you when you look at it later? Someone who hadn't been to the Greek course, what can they tell from that photo? A man waving his hand, okay. Now, can they tell that I was teaching, or can they tell that I taught for a split second? Excellent. Exactly. They can't tell. All they can see is that for a split second, I taught. Now, we could take a photo of Courtney explaining one of his answers to a question, and someone might think, oh, Courtney must have been the guy teaching for that session. But if we're honest, the photograph picture doesn't tell us that. And the photograph of me doesn't say that I was teaching for 3 hours. It just says I taught at that split second. Now, it doesn't mean I only taught at that split second, and it also doesn't mean I taught for 24 hours. It just tells you, it's undefined. It just says, the fact happened that Duncan taught. But as for when he started teaching and when he finished teaching, we don't know. Or often with the New Testament writers, it's not that they don't know, it's that they don't see it as important to tell you. Okay, that's the aorist tense. Now, it's so important you understand the aorist tense, because when you hear it mentioned a lot of time in sermons, you're told the wrong information. And even some books, I've got a book here, which is a very good book, New Inductive Study Bible. It's got Greek notes in the back. It tells you the wrong thing about the aorist tense. It tells you it's a punctiliar action, which we don't really need to use that term because it's not a Greek term. But in English, a punctiliar action is something that happens and it's done right there and then. That whole action is completed, like when I clapped. One clap, that's a punctiliar action. A lot of books and a lot of preachers will tell you the aorist tense is a punctiliar action. Not necessarily so. Now, it could be a punctiliar action. Someone could do the snapshot with a camera of me clapping once. And it is true, it's a punctiliar action. But you can't tell that from the photograph. So you can't say from an aorist that it's punctiliar. And this is why people call it the abused aorist. Anyone heard that phrase before? The abused aorist. It's a pendulum, swings both ways. One way that it's abused is when you say too much about the aorist. When you say, aha, this is a punctiliar action, a once for all action, it's been completed. Punctiliar. That is saying too much about the aorist. The other thing is saying too little, where the pendulum swings the other way and you say, you know what, it's aorist. We don't know nothing about it. It's aorist, so let's give up on our exegesis right here because we don't know, it's undefined. And by the end of today, you should be able to look at an aorist and have an idea of what the possibilities are for what it could mean. And then to look at a commentary, like your Max and Mary, it isn't a commentary, it's a grammatical analysis. It goes through each verb of the New Testament and tells you what the grammar is going on. You could look at that and see, aha, they're saying it's this kind of aorist, and that makes a lot of sense. And you'll get hooked quite quick if you use this. and you'll be carrying it around with you. So on the bus, you can be looking at the Greek grammar of what you've been reading in your quiet times. So these are the three main tenses we're going to look at today. There's other tenses. You've got the future tense and you've got the perfect tense. But we're going to start looking at these three today, and we've got a lot to go through, but it's going to be very beneficial, I believe.